Everybody thinks they're living at the end of the world. Seriously, every generation. Ancient civilizations thought the gods were about to wipe humanity out. Medieval Europeans thought plagues were signs of the final judgment. During the Cold War, school children practiced hiding from nuclear fire under wooden desks like that was going to help somehow. And now we've got climate change, AI doom, pandemics, economic instability, social decay, and approximately 14,000 YouTube thumbnails with glowing red eyes screaming that civilization has 6 months left. Humans are addicted to apocalypse. Because the apocalypse does something psychologically useful. It turns chaos into narrative. Random suffering becomes destiny, and confusion becomes prophecy. And your life suddenly takes place during the most important moment in history, which is flattering if nothing else. But here's the problem. It's always an apocalypse for someone. Entire worlds have already ended, repeatedly. If you were living in a city while the Mongols rolled through, that was the apocalypse. If you were an indigenous civilization watching colonizers arrive with guns, disease, and maps, that was an apocalypse. If you were in Hiroshima or Rwanda, or the middle of a famine or a collapsing empire, your world ended just as thoroughly as any movie version with exploding landmarks and dramatic music. Humanity keeps going because the end of the world usually just means the end of a particular world. One culture, one nation, and one way of life. History survives, even though you might not. And that's part of why apocalyptic thinking is so seductive. It simplifies reality. Suddenly everything becomes good versus evil, saved versus damned, the righteous versus the corrupt. Complex problems get compressed into cosmic drama. And if you believe you're living in the final chapters of history, then your choices stop feeling ordinary. Now they matter eternally. That's powerful and also incredibly dangerous, because some people don't just predict the apocalypse, they want to help it along. You see this especially in certain religious movements. There are people who actively support war, instability, and social collapse because they believe it will trigger the rapture or fulfill a prophecy. Think about how insane that is for a second. The belief system becomes so focused on the world ending that preventing catastrophe starts to feel spiritually suspicious. Peace becomes interference, compromise becomes weakness, and destruction is part of the plan. Once people believe suffering leads to salvation, they can start treating catastrophe like a feature instead of a bug. But this is the really weird part. Real collapse is usually boring. Civilizations rarely explode overnight. Mostly they just decay. Infrastructure slowly stops working, and institutions lose legitimacy. Birth rates fall, corruption rises. Things become slightly worse every year until people start describing obvious decline as the new normal. Most people living through collapse still go to work, they still buy groceries, they still scroll through social media while the foundations rot underneath them. Hollywood imagines the apocalypse as fireballs and screaming. Reality is more likely to look like customer service hold music while the power grid quietly fails. And even then, humanity probably survives. That's the uncomfortable truth. The species is resilient. Empires collapse, economies implode, and entire belief systems disappear, but humans keep going. Which means the apocalypse people are really obsessed with usually isn't the end of humanity, it's the end of themselves. Because every person eventually faces a personal apocalypse, their own death. And it's a lot easier to imagine the world ending than to accept that one day it'll keep going without you. So, here's the problem with the apocalypse. People romanticize it, profit from it, and weaponize it. And sometimes they become so obsessed with the end of the world, they stop caring about the people who are still living in it. But the real apocalypse usually isn't a single dramatic moment. It's something slower, messier, and more human. And by the time most people recognize they're inside it, it already feels normal.